When the Empire's most decorated general died in battle, I was chosen to enter into a posthumous marriage with him. To everyone else, I became the poor, pitiful Omega widower. Until the day that same Alpha General, covered in medals and glory, came back from the dead, and the entire Empire celebrated his miraculous return. Only I, standing in the middle of the cheering crowd, felt my scalp tingle and my heart drop. If he's really the general, then who was the man who's been holding me every night these past few months, kissing me until I could hardly breathe? Without realizing it, my hand pressed against my stomach. Another, far more terrifying question surfaced. Then whose child am I carrying? Welcome to Avenor BL, where words whisper love and hearts find warmth. You're listening to an original BL story, brought to life through voice and emotion. Let your heart rest, and let the story begin. The news of Rowan Whitmore's return spread through every street and district. He was the Empire's greatest general, killed for his country, then somehow surviving hell itself to return home with a chest full of medals. The entire capital rejoiced at the return of their hero. Everyone, except me, the Omega who had been forcibly matched to his name. My supposedly deceased husband had come back to life. And honestly, I wasn't thrilled about it. Outside the Whitmore estate, I overheard a few guards whispering. They say after General Rowan died, his fiancée, the Omega he was originally promised to, cried herself unconscious several times. Poor thing. Poor thing? I think the other one's worse off, the little widower who got forced into the match. If that fiancé hadn't refused the arrangement back then, this powerless Omega would have never been picked. Now that the general's alive again, there's no way he'll keep a low-grade Omega. Poor kid will probably be thrown out. Look at him, he's scared stiff, eyes all red. Locked himself in his room ever since the general came back. If the general doesn't want him, I might just take him home myself. Locked in my room, I didn't think that much. Because from the moment I saw my late husband alive and well, my brain completely froze. If he's the real Rowan Whitmore, then who was the man who kissed me breathless night after night? Lowering my gaze, I slowly lifted my shirt and looked at the small curve of my belly in the mirror. A quiet sigh escaped my lips. In short, I was pregnant. But the child probably wasn't his. For months ago, I had willingly agreed to marry Rowan's name, to be his widower. It wasn't out of admiration for the great general of the Empire. At that time, I was starving in the slums, my wages stolen by the foreman, no food for days, dizzy with hunger. Someone said that if I married Rowan's name, I'd have food and shelter. So I agreed. I hadn't expected that, somehow, the man himself would come back to life. Now I was in trouble. I carefully wrapped a silk band around my growing belly, hiding the small but undeniable curve. The faint mark on my waist, soft pink, easily irritated by the rough fabric, stood out against my pale skin. I tugged my shirt down quickly, embarrassed beyond words. It was all too much. I didn't know how long I could keep this secret. Just then, the sound of car horns echoed from outside. I moved to the window. Below, surrounded by officers and staff, a tall figure stepped out of a car. Rowan Whitmore. Someone helped him into a long coat. His expression was calm, eyes cool and distant, his movements precise, every inch the hero people worshipped. He was the Empire's most revered alpha, and I was just the unwanted, low-ranking Omega forced to bear his name. Now that Rowan was alive again, I was little more than a stain on his reputation. It was only a matter of time before I'd be thrown out. But if he ever discovered that I was carrying another man's child, then it wouldn't just be exile I'd face, it'd be my death. My eyelashes trembled, I clenched the edge of my sleeve. No, he mustn't find out. Tightening the band around my waist, I took a deep breath. When Rowan entered the house surrounded by admirers, his gaze landed briefly on me. His eyes were cold, impassive. Only then did others seem to remember. There had been an Omega forcibly paired to him after his death. Someone gave me a sharp look, pretending to speak sternly. "What are you still doing here? You were told to leave." Clearly, they thought this would be the most graceful way to erase my existence before Rowan even realized who I was. I lowered my head obediently. That was fine. That was exactly what I wanted. At least this way, Rowan would never find out how deeply I'd betrayed his name. And I could slip away quietly. But before the act could play out perfectly, Rowan suddenly spoke. His cold eyes lifted, and his voice cut through the room. "Who is he?" The others froze. This is Julian," someone stammered. A lower-ranked Omega." Rowan's brows drew together slightly. "When we thought you had passed, the officials arranged an Omega match in your name. We'll have him leave right away." Rowan's gaze didn't waver. It stayed fixed on me, distant, unreadable, but heavy enough to make my pulse trip. I swallowed hard. Could he tell something was off? Everyone waited for him to speak, to order me out, to erase the embarrassment of my existence. Instead, Rowan said quietly, "No, he stays for now." The attendants hesitated, confused. "General, you might not know, this Omega hasn't been properly trained. If you'd prefer someone else." The man gave me a discreet signal to leave. I turned to go, grateful for the excuse. But as I passed Rowan, his hand suddenly caught my waist, pulling me into his chest. He looked down at me, voice low but firm. "If this Omega was assigned to me, and you don't let me handle his training myself, then who exactly do you think should?" Silence. The entire room froze before the staff quickly excused themselves, shutting the door behind them. Now it was just me and Rowan, two strangers sharing one room. The air felt thick, awkward. I tried to pull away, but then something inside me moved. Oh no. The baby had kicked. "Wrong timing, kid. Wrong person. That's not your father." Rowan's hand was still resting against my stomach. He felt it, the faint movement beneath the tightened fabric. His brow furrowed slightly as he pressed his palm again, puzzled. My heart nearly stopped. I was done for. But instead of anger, Rowan's voice came out calm, almost serious. "Why does your stomach feel round?" I blinked up at him, confused. What was he? Rowan frowned, his tone turning stern. "Your stomach just moved. Are you hungry?" After giving birth, I tried to prove to him that I was just hungry. I forced myself to finish 3 bowls of rice, 2 bowls of meat, and a large bowl of fish soup in front of him, even though my stomach churned. Rowan's expression didn't change much. So what if he saw me as a walking ball? I could endure it. After all, I had already done something that would make him furious if he ever found out. For now, escaping was my top priority. I looked up at him. "Aren't you afraid I'll eat you out of house and home?" Rowan stayed calm but, perhaps thinking of something, his lips curved faintly. "I can afford it," he said. That faint trace of self-satisfaction made me want to poke a hole in the rice bowl. That night, because there was another alpha sharing the bed, I dared not take off the bindings around my waist. I could only pray he wouldn't suddenly lose control. He worked in his study until midnight. When he finally stepped into the room, I shut my eyes tight and pretended to be asleep, heart pounding. Then something unexpected happened. His scent filled the air, warm and steady, soothing away the tension that had been gnawing at me. Even my vigilance began to fade. Lying beside him, I fell into a long, confusing dream. In it, a blood-covered alpha broke into the Whitmore estate, his crimson eyes gleaming like something risen from hell. "Who are you?" I asked, trembling. The locks of the Whitmore house could only be opened by Rowan and his guards, but I knew every guard's face. He wasn't one of them. Before I could move, the scent of a powerful alpha surrounded me, dragging me into heat. My body reacted before my mind could. I tried to retreat. "Are you even human?" He gave no answer, only silence and a desperate kiss that left no room for thought. When I woke, the intruder was gone. The room was a mess, and black feathers scattered across the floor. It felt like a nightmare, but the soreness in my body said otherwise. And that wasn't the end. The same stranger came again. That time, I met him with a blade at his throat. The night was too dark to see his face clearly. "Tell me, are you a ghost or a man?" He glanced at my belly, slightly rounded, and murmured, "You've been eating well." When his blood dripped onto the floor, I forgot my fear and whispered, "You're hurt. Let me see." But he moved too fast, pressing me down before I could resist. The next moment, the knife in my hand pierced his chest, and as the blood splashed, he bent down and bit my neck. Both of us were left broken. "Then take me as a ghost," he whispered, "because you'll never escape me." I woke with a gasp, drenched in sweat, staring into Rowan's dark eyes. He was sitting at my bedside, hands still on the blanket, about to tuck me in. I slapped him on instinct. The mark reddened quickly on his cheek. My breath caught in guilt, but Rowan simply lowered his eyes, his voice quiet. "Where's the ghost?" I just had a bad dream." He leaned closer and kissed my forehead. "Breakfast is ready. Eat while it's hot." Then he left without another word. I looked down and froze. The bindings around my waist were loose, and a faint mark bloomed red where there had only been pale skin before. Was this a sign of pregnancy? No, it couldn't be, but panic churned inside me anyway. While I was still trying to eat, voices rose outside. "You can't go in. The general didn't give orders to see anyone. Tell Rowan to come out. I'm his fiancée. Who dares stop me?" The shouting made my head ache. I tried to leave, but the proud Omega spotted me immediately. "So you're the one who seduced Rowan? A filthy nobody who doesn't know his place?" I had no patience left. "Get out," I snapped, and the force in my voice made him stumble. He tried to strike me, but someone stepped in between us. "The general said no visitors," the soldier warned coldly. "Disobey and you'll face military law." The Omega huffed and left, humiliated. When the soldier turned around, I recognized him, Mason, the young guard who had once offered to help me escape. "You don't look well," he said softly. "It's nothing," I replied, though my heart was racing. Could he be the man from that night? His features resembled the stranger's, just faintly. If it really was him, he didn't know I was carrying his child. And I had no plans to let that child be born. I couldn't stop thinking. If Mason was the one from that night, then he had both the chance and the reason. Though his features only faintly resembled the man in my dream, it wasn't impossible. The night had been dark, and I hadn't seen clearly. I lowered my eyes, clutching the belt around my waist tighter. If it truly was him, he must have no idea that I was carrying his child. Even if he found out, I wasn't planning to keep it. But perhaps he could help me keep this secret from Rowan. I wandered through the Whitmore mansion, lost in thought, until I found myself near Rowan's study. Voices leaked through the slightly open door. "So you're really keeping that Omega here?" a man asked, tone sharp. "He's holding something that could destroy you." Rowan didn't even look up from his desk. "Then what do you suggest?" "Simple," the man said coldly, making a slicing motion across his throat. "Make sure he never gets the chance to speak." There was silence. Then the man hesitated. "Rowan, why are you smiling like that?" From where I stood, I saw Rowan's lips curve faintly. It was hard to catch, but unmistakable, a small, chilling smile. "Nothing," he said softly. "I just remembered my little Omega secretly preparing a surprise for me." I froze. The other man stared. "You wouldn't understand," Rowan continued calmly. "You don't have an Omega." The man threw up his hands. "Fine. Your precious one is untouchable. I'll stay out of it." I backed away quietly, heart pounding. A secret? A hold over him? I couldn't think of a single thing I had that could threaten Rowan. If anything, he held my life in his hands. And that surprise? What did he mean? Was he talking about the child? Could it be that he already knew? My breath caught. No, that was impossible. If he knew, he would have. I shook my head quickly. The thought was too absurd. Still, the idea took root and wouldn't leave. I had to be sure. That night, I repeated my trick from before, pretending to sleep, waiting for him to let his guard down. But Rowan's scent filled the room again, warm and heavy, and before I knew it, I drifted off for real. When I woke, dawn had just broken. Rowan was still asleep beside me, his profile calm and almost gentle. His face was carved with sharp lines, his lashes long and dark. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. I reached out and quietly lifted his shirt. Nothing. His chest was smooth, no trace of a wound. So it wasn't him. Relief washed through me, but oddly, it left a hollow ache behind. As I moved to pull his shirt back down, Rowan's eyes suddenly opened. He caught me red-handed. "What are you doing?" I froze, unable to speak. The blanket slipped from my hands, and color rushed to my face. His gaze turned cold. In one smooth motion, he pinned me beneath him, my wrists caught easily in one hand. "Is there something you want to tell me?" His voice was low, too calm. "You've been acting afraid. Is there a reason?" His breath brushed my ear, and I flinched. I don't know what you mean," I stammered. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. But he didn't believe me. "Oh?" he murmured, tilting his head. "Then why are you trembling?" He leaned closer, eyes fixed on mine, and my pulse jumped. Was he testing me? Did he know? I couldn't meet his gaze. "There's nothing to say," I whispered. Rowan studied me for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled, not kindly. "Is that so?" His hand brushed my collarbone, and my breath hitched. The closeness was unbearable. I could feel my heartbeat echoing between us. Before he could say more, a loud knock sounded at the door. "General!" A soldier burst in, saluting sharply. Rowan frowned, irritation flickering across his face. "What is it?" The soldier kept his head down. "The physician has arrived. The higher-ups insisted you see him." Rowan's jaw tightened, but he finally stepped back. "Of course," he said coolly. "Wouldn't want anyone worrying about me." He turned toward the door, then glanced back at me. "You ate too much last night," he said, his tone deceptively casual. "Your stomach's still swollen. I'll have a doctor for Omegas check you tomorrow as well, just in case." My blood ran cold. If that doctor saw me, there'd be no hiding the truth. I forced a small nod, praying he wouldn't notice my panic. Once Rowan finally left, I let out the breath I'd been holding. My wrists were sore where he'd held me. "Could you?" I called softly to the guard outside. "Please send Mason to me." When Mason arrived, his hair was damp with hurried sweat. "You asked for me?" I hid my reddened wrists and went straight to the point. "Tell me, do you like me?" Mason's face flushed scarlet. Yes, I do." That confirmed it. He was the only one bold or foolish enough for what had happened. Seeing my expression, Mason rubbed the back of his neck nervously. "I just like you in secret. I'd never let the general find out." I decided to be honest with him. Pulling back the blanket, I let him see the truth I could no longer hide. The loose fabric slipped away, revealing my rounded belly. Mason's pupils contracted sharply. "You know," I said quietly, "Rowan's been back for 3 days." The child had come unexpectedly, forcing me into desperate measures. "I'm 3 months along. You understand, right? I can't let Rowan find out. You're the only one who can help me." Mason blinked, speechless. Clearly hadn't occurred to him that he might be pulled into something like this. He frowned, muttering under his breath, "So, I just get a partner and a baby for free? Is that even possible?" "What?" "Nothing." He cleared his throat, cheeks still red. "The general's giving his peace address at noon. I'll come to pick you up then." Mason left long before Rowan returned. The moment the general came back, he strode into my room, expression dark. "You've grown close to one of my aides?" he asked, tilting my chin up with cold precision. I'd expected my movements would be reported to him, but not that he'd react so sharply. "Which one?" I asked weakly. "Mason." He didn't give me time to deflect. "I've had him reassigned." He paused. "The butler said you never remember names, yet you specifically asked for his." "So what if I did?" My eyes stung as I met his gaze. He was too clever for his own good. It wasn't as if I'd chosen any of this. I glared up at him and blurted, "I hate you." Rowan froze. "You what?" The words seemed to hit deeper than I intended. His eyes darkened. "Hate me, do you? Then I'll give you a reason." He leaned close, voice a low threat. If you can't learn to listen, I'll find others who know how to teach you obedience. The meaning was unmistakable. My anger evaporated into cold fear. Fine, I murmured. I'll do what you want. Not long after Rowan left, Mason appeared again with a car. Somehow he'd managed to outsmart the guards. He really would try anything. I didn't hesitate, I ran. At that very moment, on the public platform, Rowan's low voice echoed across the hall. I propose that we establish peace with the tribes of the forest, seeking cooperation instead of endless war. For too long, the Empire has. Before he could finish, an aide rushed to the stage and whispered something into his ear. The words hit like thunder. General, your spouse has escaped with someone else. Unfortunately, Rowan's microphone was still live. Every person in the auditorium, and soon the entire broadcast network, heard it. General, your spouse has run away. General, your spouse has run away. General, your spouse has run away. The phrase echoed endlessly, replayed across the Empire until it became an unwanted refrain. In the getaway car, I sneezed violently, the chill of the air conditioner prickling my skin. Mason handed me a blanket. You're cold? I shook my head. Not my body. My heart. Rowan's fury was legendary. He'd issued an open order to track me down, even if it meant admitting to the whole world that he'd been betrayed. He was ruthless that way. A man who'd rather destroy his own pride than let go. I sighed, mentally adding another note to my list of grievances. Petty Alpha. The story spread through the Empire like wildfire. Many expected the general to banish his inferior Omega in disgrace. No one predicted the opposite, that it was he who had been abandoned. I was terrified of being caught, thrown into the beast forest where disobedient Omegas were said to vanish forever. So I stayed hidden for days, barely daring to step outside. When I finally heard that Rowan's peace proposal had been rejected and he'd been ordered back to the front lines, only then did I dare peek out from my nest of blankets. Mason brought me a cup of warm water. Drink this, he said softly. I took a sip, eyes rimmed red. Why doesn't your scent help? He hesitated. Maybe my pheromone level isn't strong enough. I can look for something similar, something that might ease you. I froze, then frowned. You'd find another alpha's scent to comfort me? Why not just let the baby call him father too? My temper flared, the hormones, the fear, everything. I grabbed his wrist, pushing him down before I could stop myself. He blinked, startled. You're an alpha, aren't you? Why can't you protect me? Mason lowered his gaze, voice quiet. My scent doesn't match yours, or the baby's. Forcing it could hurt you both. What? I stared at him, mind spinning. The child isn't yours? His eyes were clear, almost painfully innocent. Mine? Would just calling you my wife at midnight somehow make that true? I stared at him, speechless. Of course it wasn't him. The alpha who'd been with me wouldn't have been that naive. I let go of his wrist and sighed. I didn't know. I only used you to escape the Whitmore estate. I'm sorry. Mason shook his head. It's all right. You didn't love the general anyway. It's better that you got away. I nodded absently, opening my communicator. The screen glowed cold against my skin as I confirmed the appointment. A termination procedure. It was scheduled for tomorrow. Damn it. On my way to the clinic, I ran into the man who had ruined everything. A strong metallic scent mixed with the faint trace of pheromones in heat filled the narrow alley. A man lay there unconscious, blood staining his clothes. The scent and the scene were almost identical to that night. When I looked closer, I recognized his features, too similar to the man who had entangled me under the shadows. His clothes were the same brand as one of Rowan's private suits. A luxury label. Not someone ordinary. Mason and I carried him back home, one on each side. After placing him on the bed, Mason glanced at the stranger and whispered, "Brother, he's got half-beast, half-human blood." I blinked in surprise. Pulling aside the torn fabric, I saw it, black gold feathers glimmering faintly beneath the light. Mason explained patiently, "They say half-beasts look human most of the time, but when they're weak, their beast traits show. The survival rate of such hybrids is less than 5%. And those who do survive usually have problems. He hesitated. The government hunts beastkin. Should we report him? I paused, then said quietly, no, not yet. Mason looked uneasy. Then, are you still going through with the abortion? What does finding that man have to do with it? I said, yes. He seemed oddly relieved. But before I could think more, the man on the bed coughed hard, spitting blood. No, you can't do that. I turned to him, frowning. And why not? He faltered, clearly searching for words. I know it's our child. Our child is gentle even before being born. He's been good to you, hasn't caused you pain. Please don't hurt him. I won't take him away from you. I scoffed. Oh? So you just don't want responsibility? Even if you're a beastkin, I can still sue you, I said coldly. The Omega Protection Act covers that. He caught my wrist and drew me toward him. I didn't say I wouldn't take responsibility. I'll pay for everything, the best care, the best doctors. I want both you and the child safe. He was right about one thing inferior Omegas rarely conceive. Ending it might mean never having another chance. But still, I shook my head. I'm not your wife. Something in his expression darkened. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. The silence grew heavy, until his gaze shifted, sharp and cold, toward Mason. Mason, the only alpha around who actually helped me, looked startled. But the man was in no shape to move. His body was weak, his injuries deep. I didn't know him, my trust. Later, I decided to go out and buy some daily necessities. The moment I stepped outside, someone screamed, "She's got beast feathers on her." My heart sank. I glanced down, indeed. A few fine feathers clung to my clothes. The crowd's whispers turned into outrage. She's with one of them. It's these mixed bloods who cursed our soldiers. Rowan went missing because of their kind. Even a stray dog barked viciously, as if joining in the mob. I tried to speak. You're mistaken, but someone shoved me hard. Pain shot through my stomach as I stumbled forward. Then suddenly, strong arms wrapped around me, pulling me into a familiar warmth. When I looked up, I froze. The man shielding me wore the same patched clothes I had mended, but he wasn't the same stranger. He was taller, colder, and far more dangerous. The air thickened with two overlapping pheromone signatures that I knew too well. People gasped. Rowan, the general? No, he's a beastkin? My blood turned to ice. That stranger from before, he was Rowan. The Empire's most powerful general, half human, half beast. I wanted to run, but his arm locked firmly around my waist. His hand rested protectively or possessively on my belly. His voice brushed against my ear, low and dark. Where do you think you're taking my child, baby? The memory of that night came rushing back, the low voice, the blindfold, the command whispered against my skin. Don't ever think you can escape me. My vision blurred as black gold feathers filled the air again. When I finally returned home, I said the only thing I could manage. Get out. I'm just a weak Omega. I can't hold someone like you. Rowan only smiled, tugging at my sleeve, his tone deceptively soft. Wife. General, I said flatly, my eyes burning. Enjoying your little roleplay? He didn't deny it, didn't even look guilty. The worst part wasn't what he'd done that night. It was that he'd lied. Repeatedly. Now, even his presence made me tremble. He tilted his head. You really didn't recognize me that night? Even when I used my true form. Was he serious? Who could have possibly recognized anyone in that situation? I bit back a curse, curling into myself. That's when someone knocked. Opening the door, I froze. It was the government. By federal order, we're here to take General Rowan into custody. His identity has caused political concern. My heart sank. It was my fault. My carelessness. The feathers, the rumors, they had all led them here. They raised their weapons. Without thinking, I stepped in front of Rowan. Do you even have a warrant? A warm breath brushed my ear. Behind me, Rowan's hand steadied my trembling body, his voice calm as ever. "Don't be afraid, sweetheart. Let me handle it." "I'm not afraid," I muttered. "Just worried for the baby." He chuckled softly, the same cruel, infuriating confidence as always. "You've got nerve. You even dared to cheat on your husband." How could he still joke now? Yet in his voice, there was something else, something unshakably sure, as if no matter how the world turned against him, he would still win. Just like every villain does. And I wasn't sure if I feared him, or the way my heart still answered to his voice. I had no idea how Rowan managed to apply for a suspension of the investigation. Like a big bad wolf, he first made sure to drag me back to his den, the Whitmore family estate. Then, he brought in a doctor to examine my pregnancy. The procedure was gentle, and I must have been too tired. I fell asleep midway. When I woke up, voices drifted in from outside the room. The doctor sounded serious. Severe malnutrition, signs of threatened miscarriage, likely due to prolonged mental stress. Rowan's tone was cold. "Say something useful." The doctor adjusted his glasses calmly. "To put it simply, you've nearly scared your Omega to death. You're the first alpha I've ever met who managed to frighten his partner into a miscarriage risk. Congratulations, you've achieved the impossible." Rowan's face darkened. "What's so scary about me? Do I look terrifying?" The doctor sighed. "You don't notice the gloomy aura you give off? Especially toward your Omega? Is there any way to fix that?" "If you have even a shred of conscience left," the doctor replied dryly, "let another alpha accompany your Omega for now. It might help your spouse and your unborn child feel safe." Rowan's eyes turned icy. "Say that again and I'll end you." The tension in the room spiked. I was so frightened that my vision went black again, and I fainted. Afterward, Rowan asked Mason to stay and take care of me while he went to face the investigation. Before he left, the chill in his eyes made me certain of one thing. Once I gave birth, he'd probably stab someone through with a sword. My dangerous alpha husband, always one step away from violence. Terrifying. Mason wasn't exactly skilled at caring for a pregnant Omega. He treated me more like a child. He fussed over everything, cooking, cleaning, arranging the pillows, until he basically turned into a big, clumsy mommy type. I couldn't help but laugh several times. Just then, my communicator buzzed and a new message popped up on the screen. "Baby, if you smile at that man one more time, after the child is born, I'll make sure you pay for it every night." I froze. Fine, I won't smile anymore. Not because I'm guilty, I just don't usually smile to begin with. Rowan, watching the surveillance feed, finally saw that his Omega had learned obedience. He lifted his head, crossed one leg over the other, and faced the tribunal alone. The officials, arrogant, expressionless, began reading his charges. Rowan Whitmore, born of beastkin blood, concealed his true identity and rose to a high military position under false pretenses. He stands accused of treachery and collusion. Rowan's expression remained calm, unreadable. People never dared to act rashly against him, because no one ever knew how many cards he still held. Even the judges were cautious. None of them realized Rowan's silence wasn't defiance. He simply wasn't paying attention. His thoughts were far away, wondering if his Omega might have run off with another alpha. If a general of your rank were to turn traitor, the lead judge warned, it could bring war between humans and hybrids. One side must die. Rowan finally lifted his gaze. "One side must die?" He laughed coldly. "Then you go first." The entire room froze. Wasn't this supposed to be a peaceful negotiation? Why did it sound like he was ready to murder someone, just like when he thought I'd run off before? Rowan stood up. "If you have questions, take them to my father, your superior officer." He paused, his voice low and cutting. "After all, compared to my bloodline, I think the people would be far more interested in your leader's little scandal from his youth." Rowan had used poison to fight poison, and it worked. The potential scandal of both the nation's military and spiritual leaders being implicated at once would have torn the government apart. So the official story became, the Rowan people saw that day wasn't the real one. The true General Whitmore had been injured and unconscious for 2 weeks. The crisis faded, public outrage shifted elsewhere, and everything quieted down. When I learned Rowan was finally returning home, I sent Mason away. Partly because I was afraid Rowan might actually kill him out of jealousy. And partly because long-term dependency on another alpha wasn't healthy for the baby. Still, when Rowan finally came back, my hands and feet trembled. He stood outside the door, eyes rimmed red. "You really don't want me anymore?" I opened the door nervously. "It's not that, I have a fear of, large things." It was true. I'd always been terrified of beastkin, their strength, their size, their raw power. I'd rather live and die in a rundown district than move into the beastkin forests. If it were just a short-term pregnancy, I could handle it. But being tied down for life, couldn't. Rowan caught my hand and guided it down slowly. "But you're not afraid of mine, are you? That means you can overcome it." My face flushed instantly. Was he seriously using seduction to win an argument? That's cheating. How was I supposed to keep a clear mind when he did that? Before I could respond, he leaned closer. I swallowed, lowering my head, my face burning. I'm still a little scared," I whispered. "Can you kiss me first?" Later, Rowan and I went to meet his parents. I had expected a charming father, a beautiful mother, and a broken son. The reality was very different. A cynical, sharp-tongued mother. A father who'd been used and abandoned. And Rowan, forever ready to draw a blade. Rowan's Omega father, the deputy leader of the Beastkin Forest, greeted us warmly and shook his hand. "I heard your wife ran off," he said cheerfully. "Congratulations." Then his eyes dropped to my very visible 7-month bump. "Oh," he said dryly. "Congratulations again, 10 months away, 7 months pregnant. Nice math." Rowan's lips tightened. "Shut it. My wife came back on her own. And the baby's mine." His father nodded and turned to me, gripping my hand kindly. "You poor thing. What kind of hold does this tyrant have on you?" I blinked guiltily. I didn't try to run away. I just accidentally picked the wrong father for the baby. Fear aside, that didn't change the fact that this was still a story about love, a complicated, messy, terrifying love. Just as I was about to defend myself, Rowan's father's Omega partner spoke up in surprise. 7 months and you still haven't managed to escape? Wow, that's tragic." "Excuse me?" It sounded like they weren't exactly rooting for Rowan's happiness. I tugged at Rowan's sleeve. "That's your mom?" Rowan nodded. "I think so." Then, after a pause, he added seriously, "When I was born, people said she was, and she didn't deny it." I couldn't help it, I laughed. So that's where his stubborn, twisted personality came from. I rubbed my restless belly gently. "Kid," I whispered, "don't inherit your dad's temper, okay? In this family, it looks like we're the only sane ones left."
The story ends here. Below are my thoughts and comments on it. When I first finished this chapter, I just sat there in silence for a while. It's dramatic, yes, but beneath the chaos, there's something deeply human. I was forced to marry a dead general isn't really about power or bloodlines. It's about fear of losing control, fear of being seen, and fear of love itself. The author uses the ABO setting not just as fantasy, but as a mirror. Rowan and Julian's relationship feels like a battlefield of trust and secrets. I love how the story plays with identity. Who's the real monster, and who's just trying to survive? The writing shines most in those quiet, tense moments between them, where every word feels like a test. Still, some scenes go a bit too far in drama. A little subtlety could have made it even stronger. But that ending? The idea that love can exist even in fear. It hits hard. What about you? Do you think Rowan's love is redemption or obsession? Tell me your thoughts below. I'd love to know how you read this story.